Marcus had seen the package the driver needed to deliver, and now there were armed people following them. The Louisiana heat was suffocating as Marcus stood at the intersection of Highway 90 and County Road 47, just outside Baton Rouge. His shoulder-length curly brown hair was tied back, and sweat dripped down his face despite the shade from a dying oak tree. His blue-green eyes tracked every vehicle approaching from the east, hoping desperately that one would stop. 3 hours. He'd been waiting for 3 hours in 100-degree heat, and his water bottle had been empty for the last 45 minutes. When the silver pickup truck pulled over, Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed his weathered gray-green backpack and jogged toward it before the driver could reconsider. The woman behind the wheel looked exhausted. Early 40s, short dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing light blue medical scrubs that were wrinkled from what had clearly been a long day. Her name tag read, Nina Rousseau, Med Transport, Louisiana. "You need a ride?" she called through the passenger window, already reaching across to unlock the door. Desperately, heading west toward Lafayette. "Perfect. Get in." Marcus climbed into the passenger seat and was immediately hit by a blast of cold air from the AC. The relief was instant and overwhelming. The truck's interior was spotless, except for a red and white insulated cooler strapped into the back seat with what looked like 4 separate seat belts. "I'm Marcus. Thank you so much for stopping." "Nina." She pulled back onto the highway with practiced efficiency, but Marcus noticed her eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. "You look like you were about to pass out from heat stroke." "Getting close." "What's with the cooler?" Nina's jaw tightened slightly. "Medical transport. Time-sensitive cargo." The cooler had labels plastered across every visible surface. Biohazard warnings in bright red, temperature monitoring devices with digital readouts, and a large timer display counting down from 84 minutes. "What kind of medical transport needs a countdown timer?" Nina glanced at him as if deciding how much to reveal. "The kind that stops working if it gets too warm or takes too long to deliver." Marcus was about to ask more questions when he noticed Nina's attention had shifted entirely to her rearview mirror. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Nina, what's wrong?" "Don't turn around. Don't make it obvious you're looking. But there's a black SUV that's been following us since we left the city." Marcus adjusted his side mirror casually. Sure enough, a black Escalade was maintaining a steady distance about 6 cars back. "Maybe they're just going the same direction." "Maybe." But Nina's tone made it clear she didn't believe that for a second. She pulled her phone from the cup holder and dialed a number using voice command. "This is Unit 742. I'm westbound on Highway 90 approaching Thibodeau. I have a possible tail. Black Escalade, Louisiana plates, partial reading Alpha Charlie 7. A male voice came through the truck's speakers. "Copy that. 742. Can you confirm cargo status?" "Cargo is secure. Timer shows 81 minutes remaining." "Understood. We're alerting local units and dispatch a helicopter to your projected route. Do not engage. Do not stop. If the situation escalates, your priority is protecting the cargo." "Copy." Nina ended the call and accelerated slightly. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Nina, what exactly is in that cooler?" She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes still locked on the mirrors. "A kidney. 12-year-old girl named Lily Thibodeau is dying of kidney failure at Lafayette Memorial. This organ is her only chance." The weight of that statement settled over the truck like a physical presence. Marcus looked back at the cooler with new understanding. That wasn't just medical cargo. It was a child's life. And someone's following us because a healthy human kidney can sell for $250,000 on the black market. Maybe more. There are people who intercept organ transports and steal them to sell to desperate patients who don't ask questions. That's insane. That's reality. It happens more than you'd think. Marcus watched the black Escalade through his side mirror. It was definitely following them, maintaining the exact same distance, matching their speed perfectly. "What happens if they catch us?" "They won't. The helicopter will intercept us in about 20 minutes, and we'll transfer the organ to air transport. We just need to stay ahead of them until then. But Marcus could see Nina was more worried than she was letting on. Her eyes kept darting to the GPS, calculating distances and routes. Then everything changed in an instant. Two motorcycles appeared from a side road ahead, cutting across traffic to position themselves in front of Nina's truck. The riders wore dark helmets and leather jackets, and they weren't making any attempt to hide their intentions. Nina cursed under her breath and yanked the wheel hard to the right, taking them onto an exit ramp that led to a smaller state highway. "What are you doing?" "Getting off the main road." They're coordinating, the SUV behind us, the motorcycles ahead. This is a planned intercept. The truck bounced violently as Nina pushed it to speeds that felt dangerous on the narrow two-lane road. Marcus gripped the door handle, his heart hammering. Behind them, the motorcycles had followed. So had the Escalade. They were now being pursued by 3 vehicles, all clearly working together. "How did they even know you were transporting an organ?" "They have people inside hospitals, transport companies, dispatch centers. When a valuable organ gets harvested, word gets out within minutes to anyone willing to pay for the information." Nina's phone rang again. She answered without taking her eyes off the road. 742, dispatch. "We're tracking your GPS. Helicopter is 12 minutes out. Can you maintain your current position?" "Negative. I'm being actively pursued by 3 vehicles. I need immediate law enforcement assistance." There was a pause on the other end. "Be advised, we cannot guarantee local law enforcement is clean. Some departments in that area have been compromised." "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Protect the cargo. Evade until helicopter arrival. Do not stop for any reason." The call ended, and Nina accelerated harder. The speedometer pushed past 80 on roads that weren't designed for more than 55. One of the motorcycles pulled alongside them on Nina's side. The rider reached into his jacket and pulled out a handgun. Marcus saw it happening in what felt like slow motion. "Gun," he shouted. Nina swerved hard just as the rider fired. The bullet hit the driver's side mirror, shattering it into fragments. "Get down," Nina commanded, but Marcus was already ducking. 2 more shots hit the truck, one shattering the rear window and sending glass raining into the cab. Marcus felt a sharp pain in his shoulder and realized he'd been cut by flying glass. Nina made a desperate decision. She spotted a narrow dirt road leading into dense forest and yanked the wheel without warning, sending them skidding onto the unpaved path. The truck bounced violently over ruts and exposed roots. Branches scraped both sides of the vehicle with sounds like fingernails on a chalkboard. Nina pushed the accelerator to the floor, and they plunged deeper into what looked like private hunting land or wilderness area. Behind them, both motorcycles followed. The Escalade attempted to follow but was too wide for the narrow path. Marcus watched through the shattered rear window as the SUV got stuck between 2 trees, its driver forced to abandon the pursuit. But the motorcycles were still coming, and they were faster and more maneuverable on this terrain. "Where does this road go?" Marcus shouted over the engine noise. "I have absolutely no idea." The dirt road twisted through thick forest, barely wide enough for the truck. Nina drove with intense focus, avoiding the larger obstacles while maintaining as much speed as she dared. The timer on the cooler showed 73 minutes remaining. One of the motorcycle riders pulled alongside them again, this time on Marcus's side of the truck. The rider was close enough that Marcus could see his cold, professional expression through the helmet visor. The rider raised his gun again. Marcus acted on pure instinct. He grabbed an empty water bottle from the cup holder and hurled it at the rider's face. It was a ridiculous weapon, but it was all he had. The bottle bounced harmlessly off the rider's helmet, but the rider instinctively swerved to avoid it. That split-second distraction was enough. The front tire hit a large root, and the motorcycle went down hard. The rider tumbled through the brush, and the bike skidded into a ditch. "One down," Marcus shouted. But the second motorcycle was still pursuing, and they were running out of road. The dirt path ended abruptly at a small clearing next to a murky bayou. Nina slammed on the brakes and they skidded to a stop in soft mud. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Marcus heard the sound of the remaining motorcycle engine growing louder. Nina grabbed the cooler from the back seat and kicked open her door. "Run!" They scrambled out of the truck and ran toward dense vegetation at the edge of the clearing. Marcus had no idea where they were going or what their plan was. He just followed Nina as she crashed through palmetto palms and Spanish moss. Behind them, the motorcycle entered the clearing. Nina pulled out her phone as they ran. "Dispatch, this is 742. We've been forced off-road. GPS shows." She looked at her phone screen. Approximately 3 miles southeast of Kramer, one motorcycle still pursuing. "I'm on foot with the cargo. Helicopter is 7 minutes out. Can you evade for 7 minutes? We're going to try." They found a fallen log and took cover behind it, both of them breathing hard. Nina checked the cooler's temperature readings. Still viable. 68 minutes remaining. The motorcycle engine sound had stopped. Marcus peeked over the log and saw the rider had dismounted and was moving through the forest on foot, gun drawn, searching methodically. "He's hunting us," Marcus whispered. Nina's face was grim. This is what they do. They track couriers, intercept them in remote areas, steal the organs, and disappear. Most victims don't survive to testify. Marcus felt ice run through his veins. "You're saying they'll kill us even after they get the organ?" "Dead witnesses can't identify them." They crouched behind the log, watching the rider move closer. He was patient, professional, checking behind every tree and bush. Marcus looked around desperately for anything they could use as a weapon. There was nothing but mud, branches, and swamp water. The rider was 30 feet away. Then 20. Nina made a decision. She stood up suddenly and hurled the cooler as hard as she could, not at the rider, but away from him, toward the bayou. "No," the rider shouted, running after the cooler. "Run." Nina grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him in the opposite direction. They sprinted through the forest, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the rider. Marcus could hear the man cursing behind them, presumably having retrieved the cooler. But now they had a critical problem. The rider had the organ, and they had no way to get it back. Nina kept running, still holding her phone. "Dispatch, the cargo has been taken. Suspect is on foot, near the bayou. You need to intercept immediately. Helicopter is 2 minutes out. Hold your position." They found another fallen log and collapsed behind it, gasping for breath. Marcus's shoulder was bleeding from the glass cuts, and Nina's face was scratched from branches. "Why did you throw it to him?" Marcus asked between breaths. "Because if he's carrying the cooler, he can't shoot us. And the helicopter is about to arrive. He's going to have to choose between keeping the organ and escaping." It was a desperate gamble, but Marcus understood the logic. A professional criminal would prioritize escape over cargo if the risk got too high. The sound of helicopter rotors filled the air. A medical transport helicopter appeared over the trail line, its spotlight sweeping the forest. Through the vegetation, Marcus could see the rider freeze, look up at the helicopter, then make a decision. The rider dropped the cooler and ran for his motorcycle. Nina didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the dropped cooler while the rider was fleeing. Marcus ran after her, expecting bullets at any moment. Nina reached the cooler, checked the temperature readings, and clutched it to her chest like it was her own child. The helicopter landed in the clearing, and 2 paramedics jumped out, running toward them. "Cargo secure?" one of them shouted. "Secure," Nina confirmed. The paramedic took the cooler and immediately checked its internal temperature. "Still viable. 61 minutes remaining. We can make it." Police vehicles were arriving at the clearing, called in by the helicopter crew. The fleeing motorcycle rider was being intercepted on his way out of the forest. Marcus and Nina sat on the helicopter's skid as paramedics treated their injuries. Marcus's shoulder wound was superficial, just glass cuts. Nina had scratches and bruises, but nothing serious. You threw a water bottle at an armed man, Nina said, almost laughing with the adrenaline release. It was all I had. You might have saved my life. If he'd stayed alongside us for 2 more seconds, he would have had a clear shot at me. A police detective approached to take their statements, and Nina's truck dashboard camera footage would provide most of the evidence needed. The rider we caught is already talking, the detective told them, trying to negotiate a deal. He's giving up names of the people who hire them to intercept organ transports. Marcus learned that this particular trafficking ring had been operating for 3 years, stealing an estimated 27 organs and causing the deaths of patients who died waiting for transplants that never arrived. Your evidence is going to help us shut down their entire operation. The helicopter took off with the kidney, racing toward Lafayette Memorial with 56 minutes remaining on the viability window. They would make it with time to spare. 2 days later, Nina invited Marcus to visit Lafayette Memorial. Lily Thibodeau was in post-surgical recovery, pale and weak but with bright, alert eyes. Her parents sat beside her bed, looking like they hadn't slept in days but were finally able to breathe. "You're Marcus," Lily said, her voice hoarse. "Mom says you're the hitchhiker who helped protect my kidney. Nina did all the hard work. I just stayed in the truck." "You could have gotten out when the shooting started," Lily's mother said, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't owe us anything, but you stayed, and you helped save our daughter's life." Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd just been trying to survive, but he supposed survival and courage weren't always mutually exclusive. Lily's father showed Marcus a small manila envelope. "The hospital gave us this. It's a letter from the donor's family." Marcus read the letter. A 19-year-old college student had died in a car accident, and his family had chosen to donate his organs. His kidney went to Lily. His liver saved a 40-year-old mother of 3. His heart went to a 62-year-old veteran. "One donor saved 3 lives," Lily's father explained. "And you made sure at least one of those donations reached its intended recipient." 3 months later, Marcus received a package at a general delivery address. Inside was a watercolor painting of a horse, clearly done by a child but showing real artistic talent. A note read, "I'm getting stronger every day. Thank you for making sure I got to have a future. Lily." There was also a letter from Nina with updates. "The trafficking ring has been dismantled. 14 arrests so far, with more expected. The evidence from my truck's cameras was crucial. Medical transport in this region is safer now because of what we went through." Nina had been promoted to training coordinator for medical transport security, and was using their experience to develop better protocols for protecting couriers and organs. Everything that went wrong that day is being used to make the system better for everyone who comes after us. 1 year later, Marcus attended a medical transport safety conference where Nina was speaking. She told their story to an audience of transport coordinators, law enforcement officers, and hospital administrators from across the country. "The system failed us that day," Nina said, showing footage from her truck's cameras. "We were shot at, chased, and forced to defend ourselves against armed criminals. That should never happen." Nina outlined the security improvements that had been implemented: GPS tracking with real-time monitoring, encrypted communications, rapid response protocols, and better vetting of personnel who had access to organ transport information. These changes have reduced organ trafficking incidents by 63% in our region. Lives are being saved not just by the organs themselves, but by the security systems that ensure organs reach their intended recipients. After the presentation, Marcus was approached by dozens of people who wanted to thank him. Organ recipients, family members, medical professionals who had benefited from the improved protocols. A woman in her 50s hugged him and sobbed. "My son received a liver transplant 6 months ago. The transport was attempted by traffickers, but the new security protocols caught them. My son is alive because the system works now. Because you and Nina showed everyone what was broken." 5 years after the chase, Marcus attended Lily's high school graduation. She was 17 now, healthy and vibrant, her body having fully accepted the transplanted kidney. She'd been taking immunosuppressant medications daily and would continue for the rest of her life, but it was a small price to pay for survival. During her valedictorian speech, Lily talked about the gift of life and the strangers who had fought to protect it. When I was 12, I was dying. My kidneys had failed, and I was on dialysis 3 days a week, getting weaker every month. Then a 19-year-old named David died in a car accident, and his family donated his organs. Lily paused, her voice thick with emotion. But that kidney almost didn't reach me. Criminals tried to steal it to sell on the black market. 2 people I'd never met, a courier named Nina and a hitchhiker named Marcus, fought off those criminals to protect my future. She looked directly at Marcus in the audience. Marcus, you could have left that truck when the danger started. You owed me nothing, but you stayed. And because you stayed, I'm standing here today. I'm going to college. I'm going to have a career, a family, a life. Thank you for giving me that chance. The auditorium erupted in applause. After the ceremony, Lily introduced Marcus to her boyfriend and told him about her plans to study veterinary medicine. I want to work with transplant medicine in animals, combining my personal experience with my love of animals. Her mother pulled Marcus aside. We've established a scholarship fund for students pursuing careers in medical transport and organ donation advocacy. We're calling it the Marcus Chen Courage Scholarship. Marcus was overwhelmed. You don't need to do that. Yes, we do. Because our daughter is alive, and that's worth everything. 10 years after the chase, Marcus received an invitation to Lily's wedding. She was marrying her college boyfriend, a fellow veterinarian. The invitation included a personal note. You gave me the chance to fall in love and build a life. Please be there when I start the next chapter of the future you helped save. At the wedding reception, Marcus sat with Nina and Lily's family watching the young couple dance. Do you ever think about that day? Nina asked. Sometimes. Usually when I'm hitchhiking and someone picks me up, I think about what might happen. Whether this will be another normal ride or another life-changing experience. Any regrets? Marcus watched Lily laugh at something her husband whispered, her face glowing with joy and health. Not even for a second. The package Nina had needed to deliver 10 years ago hadn't been just a kidney in a cooler. It had been hope, racing against a timer. It had been future, measured in minutes. It had been proof that sometimes strangers will risk everything to protect something precious. Marcus had climbed into that truck looking for a ride to Lafayette. He had gotten out, having learned that courage isn't about seeking danger. It's about not running from danger when something more important than your own safety is at stake. The armed people who followed them that day saw only profit. Marcus and Nina saw a child's life, and that made all the difference.